And hello there.
Hello.
How are you doing today, Colby?
I'm doing pretty good, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. So, any new listeners out there, this is the Screen Chronicles with Colby and Steve. And today we are talking, what are we talking about today, Colby?
Today we're going to be talking about the new Netflix show, The Witcher.
Ooh. And that was just released last year, I guess, huh?
Yeah, very, very late 2019. We're now in 2020.
Yeah.
So, Steve and I just finished watching the 8-episode series that was just released on Netflix of The Witcher. So, Steve, what was The Witcher before it was a Netflix series?
So, The Witcher, the series, is based on a book by Andrzej Sapkowski. I might not be saying that right. Just Google who writes The Witcher books.
Yeah.
There's a series of books by this Polish guy, so that's why I can't say his name well. And they're a fantasy sort of swashbuckling, sort of monster hunting story about this guy, The Witcher.
Yeah.
And it also was a very popular video game, The Witcher 3 or 3. I really loved.
Yeah, that's what I wasn't sure if it was a book before it was a video game, because I know you talked about the video game before.
Yeah, it's originally a book. I think his first one he actually wrote back in like the late 90s.
Okay.
And so it's a long time coming for this guy that he's getting all this attention, because there was The Witcher 3, which was probably regarded as one of the best video games released this decade. Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt.
Oh, really?
Was released back in 2015. And it's kind of like an action role-playing story game, and I mean it's probably one of my favorite games of all time. And that's what really got me into The Witcher. And then when I started seeing about the show coming out, I heard that it was based on the books. I started listening to those audiobooks versions of those books while I was driving, because we're in PT school and I have any time to read other things. And then the show came out and it's based on the books and not the games. Some of the aesthetic of it is based on how Geralt looks in the game, specifically his like black armor.
Okay.
But this is based on the actual book stories, and the video game, which is like its own storyline, is kind of based off of those as well. But this was created. The showrunner is Lauren Schmidt Hisrich.
Very nice pronunciation.
Thank you.
Very nice. Might not be right, but it was a nice pronunciation.
I'm butchering everyone's names here. I'm going to show you how good I am pronouncing someone else's name, though. Henry Cavill stars as the main man, Geralt of Rivia, the Witcher, alongside Freya Allan as Ciri, and Anya, I'm going to butcher this, Chalaratra as Yennefer of Vengerberg, the mage. And those are the three main characters of this.
Yeah. I thought it was a pretty good cast.
Yeah.
Henry Cavill is definitely like a mainstream casting for them, but he, in my opinion, really killed it as Geralt of Rivia. And
he knocks out of the park. And he also, if you watch interviews of him, he's a big nerd too.
Yeah, I love this. Yeah,
he almost didn't even get his role as Superman. Because
Man of Steel. Yeah.
The Man of Steel, the granddaddy of all superheroes. He almost didn't get that because he was playing World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
When Zack Snyder, the director of Man of Steel, called, and he didn't answer the phone, and so he was already. Sorry, go on.
He just looks like Superman. He he looks like Clark Kent. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he really does. But
so real quick, we'll get into talking about everything.
I was gonna say that's what I love about Henry Cavill is that he's a nerd and he loves playing these parts, and he like takes so much pride in playing Superman, or he did, and he seems to take a lot of pride in because he was a Witcher fan, right?
Yeah, he was. So he got into The Witcher pretty much how I did. He got in through playing The Witcher 3. I saw him talk. I think he said in an interview that he played it 2.5 times before he did the show.
Wow.
Like he was already playing it, and then if you watch other interviews, I might put some links in the description, but the way he actually got this part is before the show even had like a plot line made. He just heard that Netflix was going to make a show about this, the Witcher property. He was calling the creator, that Lauren Schmitz.
Yeah, you did better the first time.
He was calling her non-stop, saying he wanted this role. He wanted it, and he was a fan of the video game, which isn't based off of any storyline really from the book, but rather like a continuation. But he was a fan of that, and like before he ever got the role. So,
okay,
I mean I think that's pretty awesome, and he kills it as Geralt. I think the whole cast kills, what they do. I think everyone's good at acting, but his portrayal of Witcher is awesome. I don't think anyone else could have done it as well as him.
He definitely steals the show, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, the other actors were good, but he was really, really good.
Yeah.
And he's very likable.
Yes, very.
Super likable. So, Steve, maybe we should start with what is a Witcher?
So, a Witcher, in short, is a monster hunter. In this fantasy world, there was, at least the video game describes how sort of all this fantasy elements come into play, is there was this convergence where like the world of the elves met the world of man, and monsters and man came into the world. And so then because there was all these monsters around, they needed monster hunters. And monster hunters such as the Witchers are like specifically mutated superhumans, if you will, supermen, if you will, to hunt monsters. But they'll also take potions and things like that too. Like if you notice when Henry Cavill's eyes are like solid black, it's because he's taken some potion to fight a particular monster or something. To like enhance his reflexes or make himself immune to like a toxin or something. And so that's what a Witcher is.
Awesome. And so there's also in the show, there's elves, there's humans, and then there's these mages. And so what is a mage, Steve?
A mage is it's a wizard, Colby. It's a wizard. Or a witch. That's who Yennefer
or
is.
An electric eel.
Or an electric eel.
Which we'll get to. This was a very weird and, to me, quite disturbing part of the show.
Oh, yes.
That part kind of creeped me out.
Yeah. But let's not go any spoilers yet.
Yeah.
But then, like I said, there's three main characters: Geralt of Rivia, the main man, the Witcher.
Yes.
There's a sorceress, Yennefer, and she's a mage. She has magical powers. They sort of serve the realms and guide leaders. And then there's Ciri, who I won't go into too much detail who she is, but she's very important to Geralt and a popular theme of this show, destiny. And but really getting into what she is kind of a spoiler, so we'll wait till we get to our spoiler talk. So what did you think of the show then overall? What did you like? What didn't you like? No spoilers.
First, let me say this first. If you are a fan of Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, The Hobbit, those kind of fantasy world things, and this is probably your type of show. Okay. You're gonna, you got things, I don't even know. Well, I'll wait to say some of that, but you'll probably dig this kind of show if you like those kind of things. Obviously, if you've played the Witcher video game, you might really dig the show. So I'm coming from somebody who has no idea anything about the Witcher before the show. I was learning everything from the show, not from a video game or a book that had come out previously, compared to Steve, who played the video game, at least one, right?
I've only played The Witcher 3. I've been through it like one, and I just started again recently.
So here's what I want to say about my experience watching the show. I liked the show. I wouldn't say I loved the show. Okay. And I'm really big into Lord of the Rings. I'm really big into I was really big into Game of Thrones. But there was something about The Witcher that was not quite to that level yet, but it was still good. Still worth the watch, and I think it's got a lot of potential for the future. But as of, I don't know why it didn't really get to that level for me though, of like how much I liked Game of Thrones or something like that. But it was a pretty fun watch. I think after episode 1, I was like really stoked on it, and I don't think there were any other episodes that like met that excitement for me.
Yeah, I can see.
What about you? What'd you think?
So I really liked it, and again, it's probably, I think once we get some more seasons into it, I think it's going to be a better show.
Yeah.
But and that's a way a lot of shows kind of operate. Other shows, though, like The Last Kingdom, was amazing from start to finish. It had everything in it.
Yeah.
Alexander Draymond, come on.
Alexander Draymond, please come on the show.
But this show, I mean, it starts out, and they really have to sort of build, and we'll get into sort of the timeline thing too.
There was kind of a confusing aspect to the show, I think, when it came to the timeline. I was kind of scratching my head at some points, like
I didn't realize
I didn't know if I was the only one.
I didn't realize till about halfway through I was like, I was like, huh?
Yeah.
But
so we'll get into that a little bit. But
yeah, and there's a lot of things that I think for a casual viewer they didn't explain. A lot of things that I was explaining to you that I've learned through the games and the books that they didn't really explain in this show very well. They just sort of keep going, and I think some more setup and focus more on the Witcher himself instead of the other characters. Even though the other characters are very interesting, I think I should have spent more time on him and how his sort of lore, and because his lore really reflects the world's lore as well. So I think if they would have spent a little bit more time on that, it would have been a little bit more clear about what was going on. And
okay, so let me ask you this. Are Ciri and Yennefer in the video games?
Yes. They're very important in the video games.
Okay. So
I'll get into that too once we get into our spoiler talk. But overall, I liked it. I liked the show. The sword fights that Henry Cavill does are probably the best part of the show.
At least the one in episode 1. Yeah, I think they're the best part of the show. But I would go as far to say
at Sintra with, I won't say any specific spoiler points, but when he's fighting with that other knight against the rest of that court, I thought was pretty phenomenal.
Oh, that one was pretty good too.
When he was going to join the fight, I was like, and Henry Cavill too.
That was pretty awesome.
We're really crushing on Henry Cavill real hard. So Henry Cavill,
great job.
Yeah, Henry Cavill. If you want to get on the show, talk to us at some point, nerd out. We can talk about the game. We can talk about Superman. We'll talk about whatever you want. Get on this show. But he does all of his own sword fighting. I heard somewhere that he did all of his own stunts, like entirely.
Oh, that's good to hear.
So I don't know if that's 100% true. The showrunner said that, but because there's some scenes where Geralt is getting tossed around, and I'm like, did he do that?
The very first scene of the
I wouldn't have done that. And so, I mean, he kills it though. I mean, you can tell it's him.
And the choreography of those sword fights is just. I said it on our last episode when we were talking about Star Wars, because the first time we see a sword fight with him is in episode 1, and I sent you a Snapchat, a video of him doing it, and I was like, dude, this guy is a Jedi, the way he was fighting. And I went as far to say on the last episode that might have been the best choreographed sword fight I've ever seen on a screen. In episode 1,
I would 100% agree with that. I don't think any other sword fight.
Not only was it choreographed well, but it was also filmed really well. So a lot of credit to the filmmakers for making it look cool, because I think that's a hard thing to do with some sword and saber fights. I think it's sometimes hard to film, or at least it seems that way. Yeah. Or at least sometimes maybe the filming seems that way because they're kind of trying to cover up for choreography that's not good, maybe. Mm-hmm. But it was just almost perfect the way they did that episode 1 sword fight, and I think that's what got me super stoked on the show. after I saw that, I was like, okay, this is pretty sweet.
So before then we get into the spoiler talk, is this still something you'd recommend though to someone if they wanted to watch something on Netflix, or another friend who was looking?
I would, but I wouldn't recommend it to everyone.
I would agree. This is also, we should mention, a very mature show, like Game of Thrones level, HBO level.
Yeah, I was also going to say, if you like
nakedness and
if you like Game of Thrones
and some really bad surgery that you don't want to see.
Yes. I was going to say, if you like Game of Thrones, if you like The Hobbit, if you like Lord of the Rings, and if you like boobs, this is a good show for you.
They do not get skimpy on the boobs, that's for sure.
So
if you're looking for a fantasy show to watch, I'd say this is pretty good. It's not the tippy top of my favorite shows to watch, but I mean, I was still looking forward to watching the next episode every time when I was watching it. So, and
I think it has a lot of potential to become a lot better.
Along those lines, I mean, Game of Thrones season 1 for me was pretty boring. I remember because I heard everyone talking about the show, and I actually bought like the first 3, I think, seasons on Blu-ray, and I was watching them, and I think I only finished like the first 2 seasons because I was kind of bored a lot of times. But then after like the show got going, like those were actually like some of my favorite parts because then I understood who each character was. I understood the significance of different things, and it was better when I was like binge watching the show.
And that's a good point, because I think that's something that was missing from The Witcher. I think some of those building points, even though they tend to be a little bit boring, I think would have been helpful in understanding who each of the characters were, where they came from, what a lot of their motives were. Those are some things I was definitely fuzzy on when I was watching The Witcher. So, all right. You want to get into some spoiler talk?
Let's get into some spoiler talk. This is your spoiler warning for anyone out there listening. You can listen to that first bit. You can keep listening if you're not afraid of spoilers, but we're going to get into probably spoilers for the books, the Witcher 3 game for sure, and of course this series, The Witcher Season 1 as well.
Okay.
So, anything now that you have on the tip of your tongue that you want to say or anything?
Well, we were just talking about the confusing timelines in the show. Mm-hmm. And so in the first episode, we see the queen, who is the grandmother of Ciri.
Yeah, Queen Calanthe.
Yeah. And it shows that's her husband, is it?
Yeah.
Right? Who's standing behind her. And they show the attack on their kingdom, which is Sintra.
Yes.
And
by Nilfgaard.
Yeah, by Nilfgaard attacks them, and they the only thing they seem to care about is getting Ciri away. Mm-hmm. That's their big priority, or protecting her. And then so they send her away, and they try to have some people take her. Those people end up getting killed while they're trying to escape, and she runs away into the woods. So then for the next few episodes, we have the storyline of her on her adventure, trying to escape bad people and encountering other people. At the same time, we're having a completely separate side story with Geralt doing his cool adventurous stuff, meeting people, and also a separate side story with Yennefer, who is this she's this deformed, she's scoliotic, her chin is deformed, and we find her as like a pig farmer. Mm-hmm. And then this mage comes and takes her away from her family, and her dad like sells her for like nothing, almost nothing, for much less than what he'd sell a pig for, right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
He sold her for less than a pig.
Yeah. It was pigs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then so I thought all of this was happening at the same time. I totally was like, okay, they're all like gonna meet somehow. And then we get into, I don't remember what episode it was, it 3 or 4, when all of a
Carol's at
sudden
Sintra.
I see Geralt gets to Sintra, and the queen from episode 1, I thought it was like somebody else. I thought it was like a lookalike or something, or I was trying to figure out, was like, is this a mirage? Is this a flashback? Because I didn't see anything that made it seem like a flashback. And I'm like, I was just like, this is confusing, because the other thing I was thinking, was it a flashback? It couldn't have been a flashback, because the minstrel guy that was with Geralt encounters this minstrel in like episode 1 or 2, who kind of is following him. He's annoying him, and he's also there in Sintra with Geralt, and everybody's there except Ciri's not born yet. But I just was like, wait, why are they still alive? There wasn't really anything definitive that told me they were back in time, so I kind of had to figure that out on my own.
Yeah.
Were you like that too, or was that just me? Was that?
So yeah, like I said, I had played the game, and I knew that Geralt and Yennefer had a romantic on again, off again sort of love relationship, and that him and Ciri that he had basically raised her and taught her some things about being a witcher and things like that. So I had known those things going into this, and so I kind of understood the timeline. Plus, I had read
this whole series then, and was pretty much the story of them getting to that point where he's going to start raising Ciri.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the part you're talking about too, I was also thinking everything was going on simultaneously, because I've only read 2 books, The Last Wish and Blood of Elves. And The Last Wish is a really good book. If anyone wants to read a Witcher book, I would really recommend this one, especially the audiobook version of it. I thought was really good. It's a bunch of short stories about Geralt, and a lot of his short stories are what are like his episodic parts of this series, like the show of him, the episode, the first one where he becomes the Butcher of Blaviken. That's a story in the book, and it's also a lot more fleshed out too. I liked how this show did it, but I thought the book had a lot more sort of built into it, a lot more connection, and the whole lesser evil things going on. And it also goes about how he kills that one, the queen or the princess that turned in that big monster.
Yeah.
And it also tells the story about how he meets Yennefer. And the reason the book is called The Last Wish is because his last wish from the Djinn was to in some way tie him and Yennefer's fate together. Their destiny was to be intertwined, and that's how she survived. And no, everyone kind of speculates what exactly he said, but I don't think there's any sort of definitive answer for what he exactly wished for. So a lot of his, because you'll notice in the show, Ciri's whole plot line is pretty sort of how Netflix is typically like a serialized continuing story, overarching. But Geralt's stories are a lot more episodic.
Yes, they are. I would, and so that's a good point. It's like every episode is like a different adventure for Geralt, kind of like they were doing like in The Mandalorian, how like each episode was a separate adventure. Except you're right, like with Ciri, her story kept going through. But yeah, so I mean, it makes sense in the end that like everything we're watching with Geralt is happening before the very first scene with Calanthe and Ciri.
Yeah,
and the attack on Sintra.
I was still taken off because when he first, I think it's the mage that he sees with the black hair. He looks a little bit different than he did at the beginning. I think his name is like Mouse Sack or something weird like that. And like he only had black in his hair. At the beginning of the show, he had some gray in his beard and stuff. So I was like, is that the same guy? And then he sees the queen and that other king of Skellige who isn't the king yet. And he's alive, and he got taken out like in the first episode when arrow to the eye. So I still didn't know, because The Last Wish is only a bunch of stories about Geralt, and at the very end he meets Yennefer. And then the very first book, that The Blood of Elves, Geralt has already found Ciri, and he's been training her as a witcher, and he has already had a relationship with Yennefer. So I still didn't know exactly the timeline, even from these books, going into the show, because also Geralt and Yennefer, because Geralt was mutated and Yennefer is a sorceress who had these features of hers cleaned up. They both age a lot slower too, which is what allows them to, go through this time lapse thing, Okay. So I was still taken off, and I mean, I caught on and I understood, but then I can definitely see how someone who, is seeing these characters for the first time would be very confused.
Yeah. I was confused, that's for sure. And I also wasn't sure, it seemed like the plot jumps in Yennefer's character, after she kind of escaped from the one role she had where she was watching over the baby and the mother. And then she started kind of going and doing her own thing. I felt like there were some big jumps there. It was okay.
Yeah, especially her story really jumped a lot.
Yeah.
And I actually found an article that the showrunner kind of explains it. And have you ever seen the movie Dunkirk?
No, I have not.
It's kind of a good movie. It is a good movie. It's by
kind of a good movie.
it's by Christopher Nolan, but
Okay.
there's this
air,
land, and sea battle going on, but they're all taking place at different time intervals. But the way the movie is, it's paced like they're going on simultaneously, but it's not till towards the end that you realize that each one has been going on at a different time. So this one is kind of like that, in the fact that she's so the showrunner Lauren Schmidt says Geralt's story spans about 20 years during the show. Yennefer's story spans about 70 years, and Ciri's story spans about 2 weeks. So that's why.
Yeah, I believe that. I didn't know about Yennefer for 70 years, but
yeah. So I'll clean it up. I found some stuff that made it pretty clear, and I kind of made it into a timeline. So if you're looking at it chronologically, what happens? The first thing that happens is Yennefer, who's this deformed, as you said, stepdaughter of an abusive pig farmer. She's bought off, or she finds out that she has these mage powers when she teleports, and then Trissa, another who's this mage sorceress from Aretuza, comes and buys her, and she takes her to Aretuza and enrolls her in their witchcraft and wizardry school. But it's not as fun as Hogwarts.
Yeah, I was gonna
say it's a little scarier. And
it's interesting the concept though of their magic taking away from something else. It's a balance. It's not just making having these powers and being able to do stuff. It's to have these powers, you take away from something else.
Yeah, it's kind of cool too, because it kind of puts a cap on why you couldn't just be I'm gonna make 10,000 dragons rain down on them or something,
Yeah, it's a cool concept. Yeah.
So it was still pretty cool. But then, so at one point though, Yennefer says she spent 3 decades serving kings before she went on her own. So she was working for the Brotherhood of Magic or sorceresses or whatever it was for 30 years, helping kings out, doing what she was doing before she started opening up her own private practice.
Yeah.
And she was doing that for 30
throwing
years.
Crazy parties.
Yeah. I wouldn't have been mad if I was at that party. I mean, if I got paired up with the right person,
Right. Not that you would have had any control over it.
Yeah. So then the first time that her and Geralt meet up, then she's already been around for 30 years doing stuff. but by the time Geralt meets her, and then around that time too.
I never would have known this if I didn't do research or talk to you about it. Being someone who did not know the books or movies.
And like I said, I read 2 books, and I still didn't 100% understand. I understood some things were going on. I do remember her saying that she spent 3 decades doing stuff, but it was still unclear because you're all seeing at one time, so your brain is kind of telling you.
Is she just saying that like as a phrase? Is that like a common phrase back then?
Yeah. But then so after those like 30 years have passed, then Geralt, when he's doing all of his little missions and stuff, he ends up going with Jaskier, who's also called Dandelion in the books and video game. But Jaskier is like the Polish name for the character. So if anyone was confused about that too, that's who Jaskier is. They go to Sintra for Queen Calanthe, who is the ruler of Sintra in the north. Things are still good. They're hearing things about Nilfgaard invading people, but they don't care. And then her daughter, the Princess Pavetta, ends up marrying that hedgehog guy, Dooney.
That is not what I expected when the dude took his helmet off.
Again, because I read the books, I knew that's what he was going to look like.
I thought he was just going to be this ugly dude or something. He was a hedgehog. I laughed.
She even calls him hedgehog. And then, so then it's at this time then that Geralt, he's like just off his own cuff. He's like, I want the Lost Prize, and then like on command, Princess Pavetta pukes, pregnancy, morning sickness, and he's like, fuck.
Yeah, he says that a lot. That's his line. That's his like famous quote. Can you say it again, Steve?
Oh, fuck. He's got 2 lines. One of them is, and the other one is, fuck. So I think he used both of them during his whole stay with the royalty there about 100 times.
Yeah.
And so he ends up then getting tied to Ciri through destiny, and he just saw the whole big crazy thing where destiny was
causing a tornado inside the royal hall,
and he's just like, all right, here's some more trouble for me. And then he meets Yen. They get tied together through destiny as well by their last wish with the Djinn. And then 12 years goes by, and we know that because Geralt, when he's talking to Queen Calanthe, says, I was fine for 12 years, and then you sent assassins after me, and that's why I'm here now. And then so after it's been 12 years since Geralt had met the Queen, that now the army from the south, Nilfgaard, the Black Army, is invading Sintra. They sack Sintra. Then we see the Queen die. We see Ciri run away. And then after all that, the mages fight Nilfgaard at the Battle of Sodden Hill. And then after that, Geralt meets Ciri. So that's the chronological timeline, even though they're all sort of going on at the same time in the show.
Yep.
And it was a little confusing.
Yeah, it was definitely a little confusing. But, I mean, at the end of the show, like, I understood, kind of. I didn't realize that 70 years worth of Yennefer's storyline. I didn't realize that. That was pretty crazy. I didn't realize it was 20 years of Geralt's storyline. But yeah, so it is interesting. It's interesting too that you find out like that Geralt was actually in Sintra when the attack happened, but he was imprisoned. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, okay, he was actually there. Yeah, which I'd never realized because when they showed that attack in episode 1, he was off fighting a spider in this. He was in like another village, like.
Yeah, the other woman.
The other woman, what's her name? What's her name?
Renfrey.
And her that's crew. Right. And her crew. That's when that awesome sword fight happened, by the way.
That was easily my favorite moment from the show. Yeah.
Me too.
And I think all of his other sword fights were pretty good, but I think that one with her easily tops it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was easily by far the best, and I don't think any other one was able to top it.
Okay. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then it's kind of, they had the Law of Surprise, which bound Geralt and Ciri, right? So
Yes.
Ciri's parents had died apparently. They mentioned like a boat and like they were in a ship and they didn't return or something.
Yeah.
So not a super crucial part yet, at least. And because they like Geralt's a good dude. He's coming back to check on her and like keep her safe the best he can. But the crazy grandmother, who by the way is pretty young to be a grandmother, she doesn't want. She wasn't have. They try to give her a different girl, which
yeah, I had mixed feelings about her.
I did too. At some points I liked her and she seemed pretty cool, and then other points just give like. I mean, I get you don't. I don't know. Would you trust a guy who looked like that coming in? You know.
Yeah, I mean,
with his past.
Basically, a random guy taking your granddaughter, who's the only other family you have left besides your husband,
and and the queen knew like how, like who she was and what she was.
Yeah.
So you can say, I don't think we've said yet who Ciri is or like what she is.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break and we'll talk about Ciri. Okay.
Sounds good.
We just ended with Ciri, so let's get into that.
So we weren't going to say who she was before the spoiler talk, but now we're in the spoiler talk and we haven't said what she is. So, Steve.
So yeah, before I tell you who all I know Ciri is from the video games and the books and things like that, what do you know of her, and what are your ideas of her and understanding, I guess?
So my understanding of her is that she's some sort of super powerful mage, or has maybe some kind of crazy, but it's like crazy powerful. So what we've seen of her so far is she's demonstrated that power, like, and she demonstrates it like not on cue, like when she wants to. It seems like she does, like she has this like tamed power. So like when she's in trouble or like she'll scream, and it's like a crazy, powerful, scary sounding scream that like throws people back or whatever it does. And and so she's, I don't know if she's exactly a mage, but she's some kind of crazy power source. Is from what I can tell.
So and I won't go into in depth then about what I know from, because a lot of what I know is from the game.
Okay.
I also know a lot about her from one of the Witcher books, Blood of Elves, by Andrzej Sapkowski. And again, I don't remember her ever being described as a mage per se.
Right.
But they definitely describe her as like a child of destiny. Someone that has like all this power, as you described. Like her mother had it as well. And we even hear her grandmother, Queen Calanthe, say, "Oh, you got the gift. I thought it skipped you like it skipped me." But apparently it's only been her that's been skipped. And Princess Pavetta has it. Obviously, Ciri has it. It looks like, what we saw from Princess Pavetta, lifting things up and throwing them around, and even holding back Mouse Sack from using his magic. I mean, it seems like they have some power that, to me, mages can't really even match.
Yeah, so it kind of seems like that, yeah.
Yeah. And then from the game, Ciri's a lot older. She's a lot more in control of her power. She's had training to be a Witcher as well from Geralt. She's also getting trained to be a Witcher, even though she hasn't been mutated in the book as well, Blood of Elves.
Okay.
And they also, I think they describe her as someone with elven blood in her, or
the
blood of elder blood or something like that.
So here's the thing. It doesn't seem like in the show she exactly knows what she is either.
No. I don't think she is ever told, because even in the book, The Blood of Elves, she's having visions and all these weird things, and the
she's
mages,
asking, like, why am I so important?
And Yennefer are trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
So I don't.
Okay.
It doesn't seem like she was ever told,
Yeah.
or anything like that. But she's kind of like not necessarily the main character, but she's like the main, like MacGuffin, even from the Witcher 3 game. At the end, it's like what she chooses to do, which sort of influences like how the world is saved and things like that. So I mean, and then like we talked about, there was the episode where you start to see then that the timeline and how the show is being presented isn't necessarily chronological, because you see then Geralt at that party with Sintra, and you hear that one of the reasons that Hedgehog guy has any claim to this beautiful Princess Pavetta is because he has the Law of Surprise, which is like this ancient code that they have, this ancient law, magical destiny intertwined, and he made the Law of Surprise for saving her father's life. And so he said the Law of Surprise, and it could have been anything from a newborn pup to like finding out that you have a basement to sublet from your house or something,
Yeah.
And it turns out it was a daughter for him, and he got to marry. You get to have you're tied by destiny to then that thing, and his of course was Princess Pavetta, and then at the end Geralt's like, Law of Surprise for me too, it doesn't matter, I don't care, he didn't want anything, and then it turns out she's pregnant and it's Ciri. So now they're like destiny intertwined thing is like the main like future going of the show and the books and things, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Side note too, Blood of Elves. The reason I haven't read more books is I haven't even made it the whole way through Blood of Elves because it is excruciatingly boring and very wordy. A lot of random characters that you don't care about are talking for pages and pages, just doing exposition, and I couldn't even finish it on audiobook driving. I was like, I need to turn this off. But like, I wasn't even doing any work. I'm just driving.
With so much.
I was like, I'm not interested in this at all. But The Last Wish, which is just a bunch of short stories about Geralt and Dandelion, who's called Jaskier in this show. That's his Polish name, I guess, before the translation. And that's where all his episodic stories before he, meets Ciri in present day. That's where all those stories came from. Is the book The Last Wish, which is I would recommend that to
You'd
anyone.
Recommend that book, but not Blood of Elves. Okay.
I mean, you could. I mean, I hear a lot of people like all the books, but
that one's a little bit.
It wasn't up my alley, and I think we have a lot of similar book interests. Did you read the Harry Potters too? Did you read those?
Yeah, a couple times. Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's who Ciri is. She's this powerful thing,
Okay.
So what are some other spoilery things that you liked about the show then too, or what are some of your favorite moments? Yeah.
Okay.
Favorite moments.
It was, I don't know if it was my favorite, but it was an interesting moment where the guy asks Geralt to go on a dragon quest. And the guy that asks him to go, he convinces him to go. And he died, or he thought he fell down this cliff with his two guards. And all of a sudden, those two guards show up again when they get to the dragon's lair. And the male dragon comes in. There's a dead female dragon with the egg, and the male dragon comes in, and it's just the voice of the guy that died. So all along, he was the dragon. I thought that was kind of a cool moment. I was like, okay.
That story wasn't actually in the Last Wish. So that must be from. I heard that they also pulled from another book, like the Sword of Destiny or something. Mm-hmm. I don't know. So I don't know if that's from that, but that was an interesting one. Yeah,
that was pretty cool. The sword fight in Sintra was awesome. I thought another cool character is the guy who can take. Oh, I don't know if it was my favorite moment, but it was like a really like, holy crap moment was there's like that. I don't know if he's an elf, but he can like shapeshift.
The Doppler.
Oh, is it called a Doppler?
He's a monster. Like, so monsters in this universe are vulnerable to silver, and that's why.
Okay.
When he's
I knew he was vulnerable to silver, right? Yeah. So, and he takes all these different forms of different characters in the show, and he takes Mousek's form to try to go and get Sintra because Sintra trusts Mousek. So they have Mousek. Did I say Sintra? Siri.
Yeah.
So they have Mousek, the real Mousek, and they have this Doppler guy come and look at him, and he takes the same looks and same clothes and everything, and all his thoughts.
Yeah,
like everything. Know. Yeah, so everything like that Mousek knew, now this Doppler knows, and so, then he kills Mousek, the real Mousek, and I was like, that's like an interesting way to die, with yourself stabbing you. Like, that's kind of really.
That's not my way to go.
It's like,
my way still to go is I think you would agree is probably Black Widow doing her leg thing that she does in the Avengers.
Yeah, definitely. That's
all the guys she kills by doing that leg suplex thing she does. That's how I want to go out.
That's how I want to go out.
So, but being Doppler killed by yourself,
yeah, not the way I want to go out.
I was not expecting him to die. I'll say that too.
Oh yeah. So so that was kind of an interesting storyline. He goes and convinces Siri that to come back because he knows where Geralt is. So Siri's going, and then she starts asking him the right questions. I think that's what the tribal woman in the forest said to her. Mm-hmm. So ask the right questions, and then finds out that, like, oh, this guy's not Mousek. And that was kind of a cool scene. And then the Doppler guy went and made himself look like Siri, and went to the man in the helmet. What's his name?
The Black Knight.
The Nilfgaardian
is
don't like that guy one bit. Don't like that guy one bit.
The Nilfgaard Knight. Cahir. I don't even remember them saying his name in the show.
No, I don't even.
It's like Cahir or something.
Yeah, and then he like takes his form, and then I like couldn't tell who was who fighting when they were fighting. I thought that was kind of a cool moment. Mm-hmm. And then when Geralt fought that monster,
the princess.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet.
That's it. That's the opening story. That monster like mission that he does there. That's the opening like story from The Last Wish, and that's like the opening short story. And also too, if you end up reading The Last Wish, that one too is kind of jumpy. You might even get confused in that because the first couple of chapters are very continuous, and then all of a sudden he's on a different mission talking to another monster. And
okay.
But so like,
what about you?
The interesting thing about The Witcher is it's like, especially if you read the book, there's a lot of like parallels to like classic fairy tales that The Witcher kind of portrays, like the huntsman or the woodcutter in, almost like sort of that role. And like in that role, it's a cursed princess, but instead of her needing true love's first kiss, she needs to stay out of her coffin for a night. And and she's going to be this brutal monster that fights.
Oh, she was creepy. Witcher. Did you? You must have hated that scene because you hate scary things, and that was super scary.
So when she kills the guy in the room, that like jump scare that they do, and then she like tears out his guts. That scared me. But then what really like disturbed me was they were like intercutting that scene with Yennefer's transformation. So after Yennefer has been a mage for a while, she decides to get some plastic surgery done. She gets her spine fixed.
What does she pay with?
Oh, she pays with like her ovaries or something, and it was disgusting. It was ugh. I
She
was
became
like,
sterilized.
yeah, it
As
was
a
like
trade-off to be beautiful.
yeah. So I mean, that was the thing I didn't like about that part. Probably, and that's probably one of the favorite things about the show for me. Obviously, was Geralt. Anytime Geralt was on screen doing stuff,
Yeah,
that was
he
my
pretty
favorite
much
stuff.
stole the show. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I want. Something more from season 2 is I want more monster hunting missions from Geralt
Yeah,
to
I
really
think that's the thing
show.
that disappointed me about the season finale. I mean, there was a pretty cool battle of the mages, but there was Geralt. Although Geralt did a very um, critical thing to make our dream team. You know what that is? Do you know what that is in that episode?
No, what he did?
He laid in the back of a cart and hallucinated. Because you know who else did that?
Our boy Uhtred, son of
Uhtred
Uhtred.
did that, and Ragnar did that from Vikings. So,
Oh yeah, he did. Huh? Yeah.
so beautiful.
Yeah, that's how you get some.
That's a big.
Some internal motivation explanations for main characters, I guess.
Laying
epic
helpless in the
shows.
back of a cart, hallucinating.
And that's when you find out he was abandoned by his mother to be with Vesemir, who is another Witcher that trained and put the mutations and.
Yeah. By the way, shout out to the guy driving the cart.
Yeah,
Big
great
shout
guy.
out to that guy. Great guy.
Great guy.
Oh,
He
you fall
saved Geralt.
asleep?
He's not letting him sleep. He was taking care of him. Geralt's like, take me there, or whatever. And he's like, okay, just like, whatever you say.
Dude, we needed that guy in pharmacology. Don't go to sleep. Hey, stay awake. Don't you shut your eyes.
Look at
Keep
that.
your eyes open.
Close that other browser.
Yeah.
Stop playing Super Santa Kicker, Steve. Fine. But yeah, so one thing you just mentioned is Geralt makes a team, right? I was going to propose that as well.
So if you don't know, Steve and I have our dream team full of characters from different shows and movies that are a certain level of badass, and you know, you really got to be special to make our dream team. And so some obvious members of the dream team, the most obvious is Uhtred
Son
from
of
Last
Uhtred.
Kingdom. Another member of the dream team, like we just mentioned, is Ragnar Lothbrok from Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
And those are just a couple examples. We're going to make this list even more definitive as time goes on, but we think Geralt definitely will make the cut.
I vote on him. You vote on him. I'm definitely sure. We'll maybe have our own episode.
Maybe we should do an episode
where we
Dream Team
talk
episode,
about our dream team members,
and we have a all villains team too.
Ooh,
yeah. Oh yeah, we got all villains team. So,
and that's probably another thing too, I guess, about this series. There wasn't any sort of definitive villain.
Well, I guess Nilfgaard was sort of
Nilfgaard army, and there's the sorceress Fragilla, but you really don't even know too much about her either to really hate her or anything other than she kind of betrayed them. And I would have. And
I mean, I guess the guy in the black
Ciri.
helmet, he's kind of the bad guy because I mean he's trying to hunt Ciri, and you know, and they're shown killing when they invade Sintra. They're like killing a bunch of people. So they're made to be bad guys.
If we were watching a show called Nilfgaardians, you know,
then we would have a completely different perspective.
Then we would probably be like, those are our boys, like in Vikings, you know.
And just like the Empire in Star Wars, like we never get the other side of the story. I mean, they address it in The Mandalorian. The one dude is like the ex-Empire guy was like, he's like, we were making peace and prosperity in the galaxy, and now there's chaos. Mm-hmm. So Empire did nothing wrong.
So do you think Nilfgaard did anything wrong then, or are they unifying? Are they unifying
the nations?
Yeah.
You know, they saw the corruptness going on in Sintra. They came in, tried to clean that up.
Oh yeah, they saw that Queen
there was nothing.
Just very anti, freedom choices and
Yeah.
oh, so another
Just
part,
messing, by the way. Although
another part I like too was obviously we talked about the sword fight from Blaviken, very first episode,
yes,
where he fights what's her name again? Sorry.
Renfrey.
Renfrey. That's her name. Renfrey and her crew. And when he tears through her crew, I was like, that was sick. And it was
He literally used the force. He force pushed them away.
well, that's another thing too they don't explain in this is that Witchers don't really have magic, but they have like these few what they're called signs that they can use. So he can't do like say summon, turn someone into an eel like that one sorceress can. But he does have.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
he does have a sign though that's called Ard, like AARD, or it's Polish or whatever, and he can. It's basically a force push. If you play the game, you see that the books they don't really explain it in depth in the books, but they say he
uses it time to time in the show.
Yeah,
throughout the show.
But cool. Yeah, they never explain that. They never explained his potions. Another sign he can do is actually Igni, where he can like light a little fire. There's another one.
Yeah.
I think it's like Quen or something, where he can basically Jedi mind trick someone into doing something, like force persuade. Like, these are not the droids you were looking for. This is not the Siri you were looking for. Yes. He could potentially do that. But yeah, they never really explain that. But that's what, he force pushes those guys, which was just sick how he housed all those guys. Oh, yeah. And then his fight with Renfrey, it was every blow was to like kill. And like a lot of them landed.
Yeah. There's no weird like strikes with a sword like that weren't going to hit anything like you see sometimes in choreographed fights. It was like brutal. And it was like within inches. Like the one like girl puts his sword behind his back like this when she's like going for the back of his neck or something, and he stops it. Like it was so cool.
That was the sickest like sword move, and it was so quick. And even though it's a cool, stylish move, it felt natural just from like the flow, and it was the coolest move I've seen since Achilles blocked those arrows by throwing a shield on his back, like right at the last second.
We'll have to do a Troy episode someday because Achilles is also on the Dream Team.
Oh, absolutely.
Brad Pitt's Achilles is on the Dream Team. Yeah. By the way, that's going to be another thing about the Dream Team is it can't just be like a character like of anything. Mm-hmm. For example, like maybe Christian Bale's Batman makes our Dream Team, but maybe Ben Affleck's Batman doesn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a specifically played part, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just an example. Not saying either of those guys are on or not on our Dream Team, but that's just an example. So we all have to make that a rule. So
clarification.
Anyway. Yeah.
But yeah, that move, like every blow was like intended to hurt, and like they each got cut, they each got damaged. There's one time where he like flourishes and comes down overhead and she blocks it, but even though she blocks it, he's still on top of her and he still digs into her shoulder with it. And I was like, that was so cool.
So real. Yeah.
And
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Just props to them for the way they shot that and to the actors for pulling it off. Holy moly.
Yeah. And I don't think the story of how he became the Butcher Blaviken in that episode was as good as the book, but visually, I thought that's probably the best that they could do visually justice for it. Because I mean, like the whole scene where he goes to the crew, it might even been like the same as it's written in the book, because he just houses them in the book too. And I mean, it was awesome. Another scene though that I loved was when at the proposal wedding ceremony thing at Sintra, when Geralt and Dandelion or Jaskier go there. Jaskier, and Dooney comes up with his helmet on and everything, so you can't see his face. And then as soon as he takes it off, everyone's coming at him, and he just goes ham. He starts fighting people. Good fighter.
He was sweet. He was sweet. Yeah, he could
sweet.
fight.
He was moving well. But he ends up on the floor.
He got overwhelmed.
He got overwhelmed. And this guy with an axe starts coming over, and he starts bringing it down. And Geralt you just know he's gonna be there. And Geralt's just there and just swinging up in slow motion. I was up off the couch. I was like, yes, just watching it. And he cuts off the top part of the blade, and then he catches it. Now that's Dooney. That's his new weapon then for the fight. And then Geralt just starts housing guys, and then everyone else, they've been just waiting for a reason to fight each other at this party to marry some girl that none of them are going to get to marry. And they all just start fighting too. I was yes, this is the best. That's like how a Viking party would go.
That's exactly how a Viking party would go.
So that was, and just, I mean, it was great. It was, those are some of my best moments.
Yeah.
Also, Jaskier's song, Toss the Coin to Your Witcher. Do you remember that?
A little overplayed. Kind of mainstream, overplayed.
Too trendy for you.
It's the only song he knew.
But it was really, I like it.
One hit wonder.
That's a coin to your witcher.
Oh, that's a cool song.
Plenty. That was fun.
It was fun. Yeah.
I liked it.
I like it writing songs about me all the time. That'd be cool.
Geralt didn't like it.
You didn't like that guy at all.
He did not like him at all. I mean, you could tell he definitely cared. But
he cared about him, but he would insult him a whole bunch, and then he would talk to him like a friend.
And as soon as he got cursed by the genie, the djinn, he was all about trying to save him.
Oh yeah,
even though Yennefer is there and she's just topless half the time and tricking him with an orgy and everything. And
yeah. Classic trick.
Classic. Did you see that part, the orgy part wasn't in the book. So it was pretty cool that she had all these people. I thought she was at some crazy party,
No,
But it turns out it was a spell because she
everybody was under a spell.
She's like,
everybody
you guys can go home.
They all started covering their their areas and running away. Oh, it's hilarious. Yeah, that part was cool. Oh, but here's the thing. Let's talk a little bit about that eel part.
Oh yeah, go.
So this part gives me the creeps.
Yes.
So Yennefer she's trying to figure out. She's still at the Aretusa School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, second class to Hogwarts.
I would definitely want to go to Hogwarts over this.
Yeah. Anyway, and there's a whole class of these mages, and what's her name? The Tissia.
Yeah, the head woman.
The head woman is teaching them, and they're having all these.
Tissia, the Vrees.
They're trying to catch lightning in a bottle, and just going through all these lessons, and Yennefer's trying real hard, trying to figure out if she's actually going to what they call ascend. So she asks Tissia this, and Tissia doesn't give her a straight answer, and Yennefer comes across this ceremony happening down by this little indoor pond that they have, this little pool area with water. And there's 3 mages, and it seems like it's an ascension ceremony, right?
Yeah, it's the 3 student mages with
3 student mages with Tissia, and she's ascend. She gives this whole speech, and she's ascend, and they just turn into eels. They just turn into eels, and then she's like, "Okay, come out, Yennefer," because she knew she was watching. And she comes out and she's like, "Push your friends into the pool." And it's what? This is so messed up. And apparently, what were they? Conduits? They were that. What did it feed power to Tissia or something?
Well, it's like you explained earlier with the magic and how the magic has this trade-off where it draws off of life from something else, whether it's the host, yourself, it's drawing some sort of life from, or another creature or other life form. And so for that school to have magic to do other things, like other sorcerers or the magic that's going on in the school, I think there's like a waterfall outside the school or something too.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's for the aesthetics, but yeah, she said they're conduits.
Maybe it's got a more practical purpose.
Yeah. Maybe it's, I don't know. But so yeah, she turns these other students who seem to be doing pretty well into batteries, essentially, into eels. They thought they were going to be, sorceresses that are helping guide other kings and queens into making political decisions and having their own power, and instead they get to be eels and batteries. That part,
thank God, PT school's not like that.
Thank God.
Like if you fail your practical 3 times, you become.
And it would be the opposite. It would be the opposite, because Yennefer she couldn't catch lightning in a bottle. She couldn't do the stick thing, or where she lifted the Wingardium Leviosa. You sent me that.
Yeah, I sent you that. Yeah, they're trying to lift something in the air.
It's not Wingardium Leviosa. Wingardium Leviosa.
It's Wingardium Leviosa, not Wingardium Leviosa.
So she couldn't perform Wingardium Leviosa, and then she couldn't, read the fear of the other student.
Right.
And so we just kept seeing scenes of her not being able to do stuff. And so I thought she wasn't going to ascend. Maybe she was going to break out on her own, become this sorceress, because I knew from the book and the game that she was a sorceress and she was very pretty. And
yet there was this other confusing plot line where she had this power to transport to this place, where another guy had the portal thing, and the other guy had the power to do it too. And so he went to a different school, right? Or he was from a different place, and like his master was asking him to spy on her, while Tissio was asking her to spy on him, which I didn't quite understand that whole exchange.
I didn't either. It almost seemed like, because all the mages had like a brotherhood of mages or something, but it almost seemed like the way they did that is that there's like a female witchcraft and wizardry school, and there's a male, like what are those schools in Erie? We walked by it every
what's the
day.
one that's right on our street there? Cathedral Prep.
Cathedral Prep. It's like the boys at Cathedral Prep, and then the girls at,
I forget the other one.
Emily went to.
Yeah.
And so that's what I kind of thought, because then he uses like some knowledge about her to sort of manipulate like some things at the council meeting that they were having, some things about Yennefer having elf blood in her. And
so wait, you think they teach like magic at Cathedral Prep?
Oh, definitely not.
No, definitely.
I wish, but like just the way those parents drive, there's no way.
Oh man.
I mean, they
drive
think
right up
so.
on the sidewalk and hit you. Like literally.
You were always the one that was closest to the street too, so you were more at risk from the.
Seems like you made sure that happened every time.
What are you talking about? But yeah. So like I was saying though, it's you were saying like if it was in our school, the people that don't pass their practicals get turned into eels. But Yennefer was doing bad. She didn't pass any practicals. They were learning about all these things, and she couldn't perform in any of the checkoffs or practicals. And and then she's the one that gets to go through and get to look really hot and stuff at the end. So that's like that's like us. We pass. I think I only had to retake one practical, so I would definitely be an eel. And you would definitely be an eel as well.
I would definitely be an eel, yeah.
We would be eels.
Yeah, we would totally be eels.
It would be like the top half of the practical part of the class is eels now.
Yeah.
And all the worst students, or not the worst students, but the ones that had to re-show their progress. They would be the ones who get to look hot now, and that's not fair.
Definitely not us looking hot. Definitely not us.
And she also, too, let me just say, Yennefer is way hotter in the game than she was in the show. Still really hot in the show. And her physical appearance, doesn't, define her value or self-worth or anything. I'm not saying that, but
no, but the fire that she can shoot out of her hands does. Okay.
That's what makes it.
That was
You're right,
crazy.
Colby. Thank you. Very important.
She was a regular old Doctor Strange at the beginning, just like making portals and jumping through them and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I guess that's one thing she was good at, was making portals.
Yeah. And then she
throwing that guy in front of those ghost people or something. And remember that?
What happened?
All those people watching? I didn't understand that. She was doing that guy in the cave, and there was all those people watching, and I was like,
and they were very interested.
And then they just disappeared, so I don't know what was going on there. Do you know what happened there? I don't know what happened there.
It was just like they were just trying to get more exciting. And that was what they wanted. And
good going, Yennefer.
Yeah. I wonder who the people were that she pictured her. What?
I don't know. People from her town. Other pig farmers.
Yeah.
I don't know. They look fancy. I don't know.
Yeah. It was weird. It was a weird scene.
Yeah, it was very interesting because when I read the book, The Last Wish, I knew Geralt talks about how he sees some scars on her and things, and he picks up that she must have been like deformed at one time, because apparently a lot of mages are, and then they correct that with magic. And he even picks up on that when he first meets her the first time when she's getting dressed. And so it was cool to actually see that, because I didn't really know.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was from a different book or what. It might have been.
I thought that was kind of a cool transformation. So I knew she was going to somehow be beautiful, because her picture's been like all over Instagram and Reddit of that like a close up of her after she was fixed with like her purple eyes, and everyone's like, oh, so Game of Thrones couldn't have made different colored eyes, but
yeah, because I guess Daenerys Targaryen was supposed to have purple eyes in the books.
Yeah.
Or from the books, and they didn't do it for the show.
And like they said they couldn't do it or something.
Yeah, and then they did it with Yennefer, they did it with Ciri and Geralt. They made very unique eyes for each of them.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I didn't know when it was going to happen or how, but I knew she was going to get fixed. It wasn't so magic the way he did it either. He just it was just medical and
it seems very scientific and terrible. Besides I think when he drew on her like her scoliotic spine and stuff, that maybe some magic kicked in after he drew that or something. I'm not entirely sure, but when he went in through the opening down south, that was all medical, man. There wasn't any magical snip snip here, snip snip there. That was her makeup. Her big glow up routine was the guy from Wizard of Oz.
Oh
snip,
my God.
snip here, snip snip there. Da, 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 da. How we spend the day away at the mainland of Etrusa. Oh boy.
Oh, that's messed up. All right. Where do we go from there?
Who's your favorite character from the show?
Geralt.
Oh, of course. Oh, yeah. What about
Other
after
than
him?
Geralt? I thought Mousak was cool. He wasn't in it a whole lot, and when he was in it a lot, he wasn't himself. He was cool. Who else was cool? I mean, I think Ciri's kind of cool, but I don't really know much about her yet. And then, I mean, Yennefer's cool, but like, I also don't like her that much, to be honest.
That's something from the books and the games, though, too, is that she's normally looking out for her own self-interest, and that's one of the reasons her and Geralt sort of have a on-off relationship, even though they're forever intertwined by destiny through his last wish.
Yeah, I like the dragon guy a lot too.
The dragon guy was cool. It was like you were saying too. It was cool when Geralt was saying only green dragons are real, you know, and he's a monster hunter. He would know, and he's like only a gold dragon through mutation could exist, and then he's telling the guy who is a gold dragon.
Yeah, it was kind of cool.
So that was pretty cool. So yeah, he was a cool guy.
I don't know do you have anybody I'm missing, or
I really like.
Is there anyone I'm missing?
I like Yaskir. I thought he was.
I thought he was kind of annoying.
Hilarious.
He was funny. Awesome. He was funny, but
his songs and the way he behaved and things like that. I thought he was done perfect.
Okay.
From the
what
books.
About anybody else?
Like you said, I mean, Yennefer is someone that when you see her with Geralt, you're like, oh man, I hope they kick it off. And I thought that the actress played her well with how she's supposed to be, but she's also, kind of selfish and kind of mean. So you kind of don't like her. And Ciri, I need to see more of Ciri and things like that before I get into that, because she's pretty cool from the game and stuff. You like her, but
yeah.
Besides that, I'm interested in Triss.
Yeah, she was cool.
Yeah, and she's actually another romantic interest for Geralt later on. But one thing that actually got a lot of fans, maybe not so much fans, I'll say fans, that were mad about the show was they changed a couple characters who I guess you could say their race appeared to be one way in the books or was portrayed one way in the games and then was presented differently in the show. And Triss, who is described in the books as freckles and red hair, so everyone sort of assumes that she's Caucasian ginger. And then in the show we watched, she's obviously a descendant of African American heritage. But I still thought that she stayed true to the character, and I thought she has the freckles, she has nice hair. I mean, and, I thought, and the thing about Triss is too, one of the reasons some people are like Triss or Yennefer from the books and games for Geralt. Which one should you pick? One of the reasons people like Triss more is because she's nicer. I thought she was nice, too. She helped out Geralt. She's not as witty as Yen, but she's really nice. She just wants to help, and I thought she killed it. I think they should just make her hair a little bit red and just say she did it with magic, and I thought she killed it. I thought it was cool how they changed it, because if you think about fantasy, this fantasy world, it's not like medieval in England where everyone is one specific way. So I think go feel free and go full out like that and change. I mean, obviously you don't know really anything going into it, so you didn't know what to expect. Didn't
bother me. Maybe I would have hated the show if I knew that.
I don't know. I don't think so, because like I said, I had read the book, one of the books where she was in, the Blood of Elves. Not a good book, but pretty good description of Triss and everything in it and how she is, and I thought she did justice. I thought she did justice for how she was in the games too. So good on her too. What's her name? She is, I have it written down here.
Give her a shout out.
Anna Schaefer.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'd say Tristan too, one of my favorite characters.
Props to her for sure.
I thought the woman who played Queen Calanthe too, even though
she was good,
wasn't a big fan of her, even though I understand
she did a good job.
Right? She did a good job doing it. Jodie May.
Jodie May.
Yeah,
Jodie May, nice job.
The scene where, and they actually did this scene twice, but I still thought it was cool. It gave me kind of goosebumps when I was watching it the second time, when Nilfgaard is sacking Sintra.
Oh.
And she's been injured in battle. Her husband just died. She had Ciri go away. She told one of her knights to go give out suicide potion to members of her court.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, this awesome music picks up. It's something like that, and she's walking over the ledge to jump off and commit suicide, and there's flames all going. That was awesome scene. That was very well done.
Cool.
Did you like that too? Did you?
Yeah,
Did
I
you
thought it
notice
was
like
awesome.
the music and everything in that?
Yeah, I thought it was great.
That was awesome.
I thought for a second when they were redoing it that Geralt was going to catch her, and then she wasn't actually going to be dead.
Well, they did show before that, like she was dead, and when those other mages were trying to figure out where Ciri was, they like cut her guts open and peeled her skin off and ate it. And oh no, wait, he peeled off a piece of skin off, ate it. Then someone gutted him and went through his guts and was like, so she's in the forest. And I was like, that's not how the Force works.
They would never teach that at Hogwarts.
Oh no, wait. Professor
That literature would totally be in the restricted section.
Even Severus would be like,
they probably started teaching that, like when Snape was headmaster.
During his years,
the professors that were there. Not that Snape would be cool with that, but
yeah, the other
weird Death Eater people that were
Death Eater professors.
Oh man, we got to talk some Harry Potter sometime too.
Absolutely. There's a lot of Harry Potter references in this.
For some reason.
This episode.
Yeah.
So.
So.
I thought, and then I think, like you were saying, you couldn't just put your finger on what this show, why the show didn't,
reach the next level.
Yeah, and I think, for me, it was. It started building once you get caught up and realize that where Geralt and Yennefer's timeline is. Yeah. Now Yennefer's fighting the battle at Sodden Hill with the other mages against Nilfgaard, and Geralt's there in Sintra, and he's trying to get Ciri, and he's like so close, and then that whole battle's going on, and then Ciri's going off, so you're all caught up, but then it pretty much just ends with Geralt being in a cart, just being a real passive part of the last episode. And the mages were fighting, and it was cool, like you said, but it didn't like do something hit home. Like there wasn't like an end bad guy for Geralt to fight that sort of like justified all the other bad things happening in the story or anything like that. It just kind of, I thought the way they ended it was pretty cool. They finally meet, and then
I thought it was kind of funny because they've never met before, right?
No, he's never. He saw her out in the courtyard,
right?
When he saw her out back, when he realized he was getting duped with that other girl.
Yeah,
but they
and I was even getting duped for a second because I thought. For a second, I was like, oh, so this is before she's a little bit younger here. So they got a different actress. And then I was like, oh, wait, no, this is like right when we met her.
Yeah. Yeah, once he sees her out there. Because, again, like you too, I was still sort of confused. And I was like, all right, this is clearly after where he claims the law of surprise from Queen Calanthe. But it looks, it's clearly before the battle with Nilfgaard, even though they're talking about Nilfgaard, but is that younger Ciri? Is he going to get rejected here, and then he leaves, and that's why Ciri is later by herself or something? And yeah, so I like you, I thought that was a younger version of her. So but then it was cool then too, because I remember during the first episode when Ciri like looks up, like, was someone watching me kind of thing. I remember seeing that and being like, they never explained what was watching her there or whatever, and it turns out it was Geralt. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's kind of a cool tie in there. I like that.
Yeah. I'd say it's a pretty solid show. I'd recommend it for like you said, people who are fans of the fantasy genre. I definitely. Let you know
Henry Cavill, he kills it.
Henry Cavill knocks it out of the park. He's clearly a fan of the role, and he does it justice. I don't think anyone could have done as well as him. and I think he is really. I don't want to say carrying the show, but he's definitely giving you a reason to stay invested.
Yeah,
and,
I agree.
Henry Cavill. I mean, everyone though killed it. I think even the girl they had for Siri is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing too is someone tagged Mark Hamill, who is Luke Skywalker, in a post about Vesemir, and Mark Hamill retweeted it, like this picture of Vesemir saying, "I don't know who this character is or what he's from, but I'm interested in doing this." And he's like, someone can make it happen. Like his like official Twitter or something. I remember it was actually a while ago that this happened, but and I was
Mark Hamill's the man.
Oh man!
Did I tell you why I like Mark Hamill?
No.
Well, I mean, I like him because he was awesome as Luke Skywalker in episodes 4 through 6, Star Wars, and 9, and episode 9, and episode 7.
Yeah, so all the
yeah,
ones
that's it. Yeah. And with where was I going with? One of his Instagram posts, he signed it. And you know how he signs his name? He writes MAR and then puts the camel emoji. And I just respect that. I think that's awesome.
He's awesome.
Or camel. I love it.
But he might be Vesemir. And Vesemir, for people who didn't understand,
you know what?
he's what? Do you want me to tell you?
Oh, you can tell me, but I was going to say something else. Go ahead.
Oh, he is like the head Witcher at Kaer Morhen, who trained Geralt.
That would be sweet.
So he'll be kind of like the same role that he had in season 2 Nightfall.
I was just gonna say this. Maybe that's his new thing, because season 1 Nightfall. We're gonna do a Nightfall episode, by the way. Season 1 Nightfall, which is also on Netflix, highly recommended to watch both seasons of Nightfall. Mark Hamill's not in it. Season 2 is really what made it. Season 1, we were really iffy on season 1.
It was
okay. It was interesting.
Lukewarm.
Season 2 was amazing. And Mark Hamill was in season 2, and his role was awesome. So maybe that's going to be his thing. Maybe he's going to just join shows that kind of were okay and make them awesome. I would say Witcher is better than season 1 of Nightfall, but it could be a lot better. And maybe Mark Hamill will. Maybe that's going to be his thing, making things better, even though he didn't make Star Wars better in episode 8. But
not his fault.
Not his fault.
He let me just say real quick, he
acting
crushed it. He crushed it for what he had.
For what he had to do, he did an amazing job. And it's just disappointing the direction they went in.
You even see in the documentary that they did, in his interviews, he says, I fundamentally disagree with what he's doing, but I'm going to do my best. And then if it sucks, it's on him. If I do really good, it's on him.
Exactly kind of what happened. And not to really talk about Star Wars again, but I read something interesting.
Yeah.
So apparently JJ, I think this is obvious, was not happy where episode 8 ended off.
Oh, he said this.
Yes.
Oh,
I think. And obviously he did a bunch of stuff. He had a bunch of ideas going into episode 9, which he put in. But when he saw the first cut of the movie, I think they actually filmed a part where the Force ghosts actually surround Rey when she's fighting the Emperor.
That's what I wanted from that scene. That's what I wanted.
So like apparently he filmed that and it was taken out. Or they went with a different direction. And also he was mad because he wanted different music at different parts of the movie that they didn't put in, which is something you mentioned when we covered it.
When they do their lightsaber battle out of
that, and he wanted different music when Kylo Ren fights the Knights of Ren. So I thought that was interesting. Not to get back to Star Wars too much, but it's still hot topic right now.
Yeah, I mean that's something studios, when they start trying to interfere too much. I mean, yeah. So that's frustrating.
He was happy with what they did.
So
I don't know. Yeah, where he loses control of those decisions, but Yeah.
Yeah, I wish he would have just had the whole trilogy, or at least been a part of every step, saying where he intended things to go.
Yeah.
Because again, his setup was what really had me excited going into the next one. And
Oh, by the way,
maybe it would have been impossible to deliver and satisfy everyone, but
there's two reasons Rise of Skywalker is Avengers Endgame.
Why else?
Well, one we already said was all
Lando
the ships showing up
on your left.
Yeah, on your left, all the ships showing up. The second is Rey saying, when Rey said, "And I am Iron Man," except when she said, she's like, "And I am all of the Jedi." That's another strong parallel to Endgame when Iron Man says that, and it's like said in the same kind of like flow of the sentence, like you know what I mean? It's pretty cool.
I mean, that's yeah. I mean,
and then
I think I'll talk about that too. I think when we do our top 10 list of the decade and things like that. But
yeah, which we're gonna do next, by the way.
Yeah, I think Endgame, had a clear vision of what they were going for, and they wrapped it up very nicely. And I think Star Wars stumbled before the finish line.
Yep.
And then kind of regained balance. And I think Game of Thrones stumbled, lost balance, fell flat on their face, and had skid marks on the ground.
Yeah.
And so,
I guess they made it, but they rolled to the end.
So I mean, it was good that they took some pointers, but I think if they would have been better off from Last Jedi, they could have finished the race better off to keep with the metaphor.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
But so anyway, The Witcher season 1. It was we both liked it. I think I might have liked it a little bit more than you, but I still like you. I want
you had
season
more context than I did. And you had a lot more context than I did, and that probably helped you.
Yeah.
I found myself as like a lot of sweet fighting sequences, some really cool storylines, some really cool subplots within the big plot. I think, like we were talking about, what took away from it was not having necessarily enough backstory on all the characters and their motives. And just kind of the timeline being a bit confusing until the end. You're not really sure what's going on, or like why some people are still alive, because they don't say flashback. They don't put the year or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I think those are the two things that really got me, because I don't like watching something and feeling totally lost. I don't like feeling really confused, because then it takes away from me focusing on what's going on and like trying in my head to figure out like where are they in time, you know what I mean? And I think that kind of takes away from the scene where I'm at when I'm thinking about it, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I like even though this wasn't a time travel movie, I like time travel movies like Looper, Back to the Future, in other movies where time is sort of portrayed differently. Endgame. Time heist. So I felt like I was pretty, good at interpreting this stuff, but I know when I watch, other movies like those with other people, they didn't really understand what was going on. And it's not an intelligence thing. It's just because normally when you watch a story or when you're in real life, things are linear. And then when they're not linear, it can definitely be confusing. But it's like you said too, and I said it too as well, is I think they could have done a better job explaining the world, the Witcher lore, the universe that they were in. I think they could have focused a little bit more on Geralt this season, and I think it was important for them to set up Yen and Ciri in this, so that you're not spending the next season is all Yennefer setup, and the season after that's all Ciri setup or something like that. Now we've got everyone, where they need to be to start season 2. So, I think it was nice because even from the books I was kind of confused, and the games about who, where, it was when everyone was all together you understood, but you never really understood their backstory very well. So I thought they did a good job, but I'm hoping season 2 is a little bit more linear and can really, get people to understand a little bit more about the world and the characters' motivations and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think we both recommend it, though. Yeah.
Like I said, to the right person. Yeah.
What about the tomato score on Rotten Tomatoes? I think has actually gone up a little bit. It's like it might be in the
I never
green.
even looked at it. It's weird.
Or
usually
the
I'm
60%.
all about looking at Rotten Tomatoes.
Initially, when it came out, it was like a 55 critic, and
yeah, the critics did not like it, but the fans did.
Oh yeah. I think people who are fans of The Witcher, if you're a fan of the game, fan of the books, you'll like this show. I can definitely see why people would criticize this, though, and I can definitely see from your point of view.
Ready?
Yeah.
61% critic score, which is not the worst.
It's not that bad. It started out at like a 55.
It's not
so
great.
It's gone up.
It's not great, but it could be way worse. And then 93% audience score out of 16,000 reviews. So that's pretty good.
Where would you fall in that, I guess?
Not 93%. Not 93%. I would be closer to, for Rotten Tomatoes score, I would be closer to like 75 to 80%.
I would agree with that as well. I'd say I'd say 80s for me.
For you, 80s. I'm probably more mid to high 70s.
So anyway, yeah, I think we're on the same beat then, and
yeah,
I think that's pretty much our final thoughts then for The Witcher.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Alexander Draymond, would you like to come on our show?
Please
come talk to us.
I'll be your best friend.
Talk about The Witcher. We'll talk about The Witcher again if you want.
Yeah, we can talk about The Witcher.
I mean, when he said that nobody could have played that role, you could. Alexander Draymond probably could have played that role. All right, let's be real.
I don't know if he has enough guff, though. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know if he has the growl. Maybe Christian Bale could have.
Yeah. No, but other than that, no final thoughts from me other than what we already said. So.
What else? What other things have you been watching? You recommend for people, or games, books, movies, shows, anything like that?
Well, I could recommend some old video games. Since
Go
I only
ahead.
have a PS2.
Recommend.
If you still have a PS2 and you can find an old version of Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith video game, I highly recommend that. Awesome. What's the word? Awesome play type for the Jedi and the lightsaber battles. It's like really fun play style, and it kind of goes deep into the episode, which is my favorite Star Wars episode, Episode 3, and kind of like into the sub storyline. So like you can play as Anakin going through the Jedi Temple, you can play as Obi-Wan going through the Jedi Temple to shut off the transmission to other Jedi. I'm sure I'm talking to a very few people who still have a PS2 and would somehow get their hands on this game. But but another PS2 game that's awesome is Star Wars Battlefront 2 that I've been playing since I've been home. And
that was from the 2000s, not the most recent one that you're talking about.
Right, the Star Wars Battlefront 2 for the PS2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, I'm not exactly sure how. I think through like the online, like Xbox or PlayStation stores, you might actually still be able to get those games. I know for sure that you can get Star Wars Battlefront 2 on the Xbox One, because my brothers, we all played Battlefront 2 together on the PlayStation all the time.
Nice.
But it was free or something. The old version of it, you could download it onto Xbox One, and it got amped up so you could play 3 at a time instead of just 2.
Oh, that's awesome.
On the PlayStation. So the 3 of us could all play at once, and we didn't have to take turns anymore. So I was playing that on break. So I don't know, Revenge of the Sith then, for the PlayStation
version of it. Yeah.
The 2005 version might be on there. I don't know how to find it. I don't know if it's on PlayStation. I don't know how to do those things, but.
And it has an alternate ending where you can play as Anakin and kill Obi-Wan in the final battle. And it shows Anakin killing Obi-Wan and then going up and killing the Emperor. Is an alternate ending.
I guess he becomes Emperor then, huh?
And he just becomes the ruler of the galaxy. So.
So yeah, and then from me, I've been actually playing one of the newer Star Wars games, Fallen Order. I'd recommend that for anyone who's a Star Wars fan and able to play video games. I'm not as good as I used to be, but I had a bump down difficulty after I started because I was getting whomped by stormtroopers.
That's not good.
I was getting whomped on the first level by stormtroopers, and so I had to bump it down from because there's like Jedi Padawan, Jedi Knight, Jedi Master, Jedi Grandmaster, or something like that. I was at Master because I was like, I've played God of War within the past year. I'm pretty good at fighting games, and I was getting whomped by stormtroopers. So I had to bump it down, just one, and it's still hard, but it's fun. And
yeah,
as far as shows go, I still have to catch up on Vikings.
Yeah, I'm caught up on Vikings, by the way.
I'd recommend Mandalorian, though. That wrapped up, I think.
Mandalorian.
I don't know if that wrapped up when we talked in our last episode.
I think it had, yeah.
But
we'll do it. We're going to do an episode on the Mandalorian pretty soon, too. Do that a little bit.
And watch. We talked about it. Nightfall. I'd watch Nightfall.
Yeah, watch Nightfall and The Last Kingdom.
If you have some similar likes to us, you want to watch Nightfall and Last Kingdom. Watch Last Kingdom first.
Watch that before any other show. It'll be the greatest thing.
Another show, too, that I really like, I'll talk about more. If you're looking for something on Netflix, Daredevil is a great show.
Oh, yeah.
I'll talk about
Daredevil.
that later, too.
We're going to have a Daredevil episode, but we're also going to have coming, we talked about our top 10 of the past decade. Now that we've just started 2020, everybody's kind of doing their top decade moments with everything. So we thought we'd do our favorite movies and shows, and some of our most disappointing movies and shows that we've seen. So we'll have a couple episodes coming out about that soon.
Yeah. So we are the Screen Chronicles, and you can find us. We have an Instagram page up already. By the time this is up, we might have a Twitter and Facebook and that as well, but you can definitely, we'll have episodes up on Podbean is where we'll be uploading, and you can see the video versions on YouTube if you want to see our
pretty faces.
Beautiful faces are just beautiful. This is pre snip here, snip there. So we might even get prettier, it's possible.
Yeah, it's very possible.
But like, subscribe, follow us, download our episodes. If you like it, we're gonna keep pumping things out, and put comments or whatever if you have any other ideas for us that you want us to look at or talk about. And but we're probably going to be steering to things we like. But if you put out something, we'll at least check it out.
Check it out. Maybe we'll like it.
Yeah. So always feel free to comment or whatever on our stuff, and let us know what you think. All right.
See you next time.
We'll see you next time on the Screen Chronicles.